fire in, Borja. Welcome everybody to inaugural Argead Network meeting, co-hosted by Borja, who agreed to join me with this new adventure. Hopefully we can keep spreading the news, get more people to come each time, and if this time doesn't work for people, we can move it to another one later. Because of our time difference, we have to locate the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday schedule for us in the US, unfortunately. But we can cover all that in the future. So our first presentation is from Borja Antela-Bernardez from the Autonomous University of Barcelona, and he's going to talk to us about Argead Kings in Love. So far away, Borja.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity, for the chance to discuss this paper. This is not the first time I discuss this paper, and each time I did a presentation on it, a lot of things come up, and what in the beginning was like a draft of 10 pages is now 40 pages project for a book. So I don't know what this is going to finish. I shall say also I have a kind of strange headache today. This is not the best day to talk about good rulers or bad rulers, but let's try to. Please excuse my English. I try to do my best. So until now, I used to title this research as Argead Kings in Love. My beloved friend Branko Van Open told me to retitle as Alexander in Love, which is so cool. I remember the Shakespeare in Love. There is also a kind of short video like with a title like that. So maybe we can go. We can talk about this. Please, as far as this is like huge, tell me when you want it to finish, and when you have enough, we can go for the discussion. Okay. My first the path that led me to this research came from the work I have been done during the last decade on the medicine and the Argead kings. And this is quite accidental because in the beginning, my colleague Cesar Sierra told me about the possibility that Alexander was like a Yatros, like a guy who cured people. Okay, like in the medieval France, where the thaumaturg kings put their hands over the ill people and or even Jesus, like kings that can heal people. So during this work, I find this episode, famous episode in the life of Perdiccas, of King Perdiccas of Macedon. Maybe you already know, but we can see like an episode of a king who fall in love, and this love is considered in the beginning not as love but as an illness. So the physician came and see this episode, and the conclusion of the physician is that he is not ill, he is in love, and he is also in love with the mistress of his father, Feil. So finally, Feil, okay, Perdiccas and Feil can go together, and everybody's happy, and the music goes up, and all these things, and the letters, the end of the love story in Macedonia came out. This is interesting. First, because I have been working like a long time in a possibility that this kind of relationships between princess of Macedon and the former wife of the real king in Macedon can be like a way for succession. Okay, and we know a lot of episodes. Even more, I will bet that the last marriage of Philip II can probably have in mind or have as a name, as an objective to offer the Cleopatra, the niece of Attalus, as a wife for the prince, for Alexander. And that's why the quarrel between Attalus and Alexander. This is because there are a lot of things at the table, in this episode. But okay, this is the beginning. So I always have what is becoming an obsession lately about the problem with religious perceptions in our study of Macedonia. Okay, maybe you already know my paper on the death of Darius and how Alexander find it. This is like a great example to see what happens where two kinds of religious perceptions meet, and we hardly can see what happens in at least in one of the sides. Okay, let me put it some clear. For the case, I am not concerned with that, but for the case of Macedonia, we can hardly see the religious practices of Macedonia itself, as far as the sources and the authors that explain that to us are not Macedonian. So when we find, for example, news about the cults in Macedonia of Athena, for example, we can hardly know if the Macedonian way to worship Athena is the same as in Athens. Actually, we know there is like a very rich, a very different kind of cults within the classical Greece for different divinities in different polis, in different cities. For example, I put always the same example. For Dionysus, we know that the Athenian cult of Dionysus is linked with theater and with let me tell, the party and the happy things, okay? And we know 20 minutes by train from Athens, we can find Thebes, and in Thebes is a really short distance from Athens, we can find Thebes, and at Thebes, Dionysus is not so cool as the Athenian one. Is truly violent and linked with vengeance and blood, and the celebration of the festivals of Dionysus are done in the forest with like a kind of archaic rituals. Okay, so how can we know the kind of Macedonian rituals and religious practices of the Argeads if we have no news about it? And this is how I began to study this topic of love. Okay, and actually my aim here is to go to analyze Aphrodite and the cult of Aphrodite in Macedonia. But I have not much clues and not much sources, so I have to go by the way of how love involves Argead kings. But let me put some ideas first. I know love is like a common human emotion. actually the mental illness is like a kind of lack of love, of empathy. Actually, this is one of the symptoms. But love is also a cultural construction, and we know love and even beauty are things that are not universal, and in some times cultures love is perceived and also is depicted in some way, and in other times and other places it is in a different way. Okay, and our society has shown in the last century quite a different way love can be showed up. So I guess we have to have this in mind. What we are talking about is not about love, actually, but about the idea Macedon and the Greeks have about love as a force that came from nature and from the divinity. Okay, so let me see. Let me put things first in this love review of the Argead kings. Of course, we have not much information on the kings before Philip and Alexander. I saw first the case of Olympias, and I know it well because I published a book recently on Olympias with the prologue by Elizabeth Carney, and I saw the usual sources on this, and for me it's quite interesting to note that when the sources talk about Philip and Olympias in love, they use different words with a common link, that is the words related to eros. And in these sources we have erasthenai and erastheis. Okay, somebody in Coimbra in Portugal told me that there is very interesting. They are in the passive mode, but we can discuss this thing in the end. So we have also another mention of eros in Philippou tun erota kaitas philofrostinas. Okay, in the end of this source, the third source. So all the time we talk about eros. Okay, but not any relationship of Philip, who is like Zeus, a little free with this love behavior. Not all the relationships that he has with women, at least, and I don't tell in here that Philip is like a heterosexual, just an heterosexual. This is another topic and another discussion. We can go for it in the end too. But in this episode, and I love this source, we can see that Philip has a relationship with a Thessalian woman, but there is no, I guess there is no eros here. Okay, so we go to the marriages and loves that are different things. It is quite clear in this text by in this source by episode by Plutarch. Diatus gamus caitus erotas. So we have relationship of Philip with women that are not included in the label love, and there are other ones that are included in the label of love. And for me, it is interesting that maybe those that are linked with eros, with love, are those that became successful and gives the realm an heir. But I don't know. If we go further, if we go beyond Philip and we find Alexander and Roxana, this what we find is the same. Okay, we have this idea of the love affair and love at the first time. We are in front of an episode of quite romantic love in our idea, Hollywood idea, not our, in the Hollywood idea of the romantic love of two lovers hand by the sun in the beach and the sunset, you know. And this is what the sources stress like a lot, okay? And again, the eros in this way. And for me, it's interesting here that we can find first the idea of eros in the Latin source by Curtius in the same way. We find eros, and the Roman version of eros is Cupidus, is Cupid. So we have this Cupiditatibus, and again the Cupiditatis, in order to be linked with the idea, the concept, the word cupiditas. Okay, so we are in the same context, both in Roman sources and in Greek sources. But let me stress here two more things. The first one is what Curtius says about Roxanne as a maiden of remarkable beauty of person. And everyone has the eyes put on her, especially the king, who by now had less mastery over his passions. And this is lovely because Alexander is usually stressed at the beginning of his kinship. Actually, he is honored by the authors and by the story and the history as a great master of his passions. But love subdue him and make him a slave of another person. This time, Roxanne. And quite interesting to say again that Roxanne is like the most beautiful girl in Asia after the wife of Darius. We can say, okay, she is the queen, Statira, the wife of Darius, is the queen of Asia. So, like a way to confer her a kind of royalty of a high level of personal skills. I can hear the rain. So we find her like described as if she was the beautiful, the most beautiful girl in Asia. But Roxanne is the second one in beauty in Asia after Statira. But the fact is that when Roxanne meets Alexander, Statira is dead. So she is the most beautiful girl in Asia, and she will be the queen. It is interesting for me. If we see that the last of our sources in this review of sources and the links to Eros, we can find Erota and Erastenta again in this description of the meeting between Roxanne and Alexander. Alexander, when he saw her, fell in love with her, and I can bet the sources are playing here about this kind of scene where a prisoner, Roxanne, makes the conqueror a prisoner too of her. So And again, we have this source too, how Alexander, daughter of, enamored of Roxanne, daughter of Oxyartes, married her and persuaded numbers of his friends to marry the daughters of the prominent Iranians. So again, the Eros. And then I go to the historiography, and this is like a custom, like a tradition for me. As far as my first research in Santiago de Compostela here in Spain were done about Wrightson, I all the time when I have to question something, I go to the story of the ideas on Alexander. Okay, and I go to Wrightson, who in 1831, and this is the date you can see here is the date of the translation to English. Okay, but in 1831 in Prussia, Wrightson wrote his truly famous Geschichte Alexander the Große, history of Alexander the Great, and he told nothing new. He just paraphrases the sources. And okay, Wrightson is 19th century, it's 18th century. It's okay. We cannot expect to have more of him on a topic with women. But Ulrich Wilken, a century later, in 1931, this is the date of the first edition, in the centenary of the Wrightson's book, actually, Ulrich Wilken also paraphrases the information we find in the sources and tells nothing more. There are no critics of what we find. There are no a deeper analysis. There are nothing. Okay. And we find the same in the rest of the great, or at least the usual, the common list of biographies, academic biographies of Alexander. We find Mills in the same way as our sources, uncritic actually. We can find also Hammond telling almost the same, not much deep thinking on this topic, and Carledge. I just put some random mentions here. So we go back to the idea of the loveliest woman in Asia, next to Darius' wife. So Arrian describes Roxanne as the loveliest woman in Asia, and Plutarch say the same. The wife of Darius was far the most comely of all real women, and courteous too, as for Darius' wife, who has surpassed by none of her generation in beauty. And he used the same expression again, pulchritudine corporis, beautiful body, actually. And again in book 3, and again in book 4, pulchritudinem formae. And of course, the most beautiful girl in the world is a long story in Greek history, in Greek thought. And first, it brings me actually to Helen. Not quite accidental if we talk about Helen in a context of Alexander. First, because as we know when we read Herodotus, the Trojan War and Helena as the beginning of the Trojan War is the first of the meeting between of the warlike meeting between Greeks and Asiatics. The second one became when the Persian Wars began. And the third one is, of course, Alexander's conquest of Asia, of Persia. So there's a clear connection between Helen and the Trojan War and Alexander's conquest. You already know Alexander has all the time in mind Achilles, the Trojan War, but not just him. I guess many people in his staff around him, even people in Greece, receiving the news of the evolution of the conquest, will probably have this Trojan War in mind, and also the Persian War. And we have seen many times how many of the episodes of Alexander's conquest in our sources are linked to with the Trojan and the Persian War and the narratives of Homer and Herodotus. And we can go further, not just in the idea that the other name of Paris, the Trojan prince, is Alexander. I will not seek this way because I don't know how to. But Helen came to Troy as a gift to Paris by Aphrodite when the trial of the goddess came out just after the weddings of Thetis and Peleus. So we have here a kind of link of this very beautiful woman of Asia with Aphrodite. On the other hand, I'm also interested in the Medusa, the Gorgon. And some people told me to try to seek the links between Perseus and Alexander, but I didn't do it yet, and I don't know if I will. On the other hand, we find some links between the funerary conquest and the funerary context and the afterworld and the realm of the dead, the realm of Hades and Persephone with Aphrodite and with the Gorgon. First, in the Iliad, in Homer, in the Iliad and in the Odyssey, we can find a different version of the Gorgon, where the Gorgon seems to be the protector of the gatekeeper of the Hades, in order to avoid the living to go in the Hades. Also, we find archaeological sources told us about a shrine in Pella, where there are like a shared place, ritual place, sacred place between Persephone and Demeter, and also Aphrodite. And we find some clues to see that some versions of the cult of Aphrodite are also related not just with the passion of living, that is with Eros, actually, with this realm of passion of Aphrodite and the life itself and the continuity of life, but also with the dead. Okay, but I cannot go further on this. I have a lot of writing notes and I am trying to work on it, but I need more data from archaeology. And also, finally, the Medusa, the Gorgon, in another version, is like a very, very beautiful girl too, that becomes like a monster due to a sexual assault. Okay, what is the most beautiful thing humans know? Sappho answer has this universal question, saying that the most beautiful thing in the world as not the armies, but what each one of us loves. And she directly mentions Helen. So in this way, Sappho is putting Helen, the most beautiful girl in Asia and Greece, in the realm of Aphrodite. But for me, it's interesting the relationship here between this passion by Aphrodite that is linked with Eros as a goddess, as a god, sorry, with the eyes. Okay, and the eyes are the way the love Eros comes within the body and soul of those who are struck by love. And it's interesting that there are a lot of eyes and souls and gazes in our sources when love is all around. I put here some sources, and we can see, as I told you in the beginning, when we talk about Roxanne and how Alexander was subdued by the gaze, by the eyes of Roxanne. And even more interesting is the fact that when the truly prized episode of Alexander taking care of the Persian royal women in their own tent, aside from the canmen, they are not trying to protect her from the soldiers. But my point is that this Alexander and the soldiers are trying to protect themselves from the eyes of that woman. In fact, what the sources say, what Plutarch says, is not that they are apart, but they are invisible to those men. Actually, it is quite striking for me to read Plutarch again when Alexander goes to see the very beautiful girls of the royal Persian royal women in their tent, captives of Alexander. Then he says that these Persian women are torment to the eyes, and there is a clear link between another episode, another episode in the whole Greek literature, in the ancient Greek literature, where we can find the same expression, the torment to their eyes. And it is in the same context, in the embassy of the Persians to Amintas and Alexander I in Macedon. We have the same role players, the same people in the same scene, with 200 years in the middle. And Herodotus says the Macedonian women and tormenting the eyes of the Persians, and now Alexander is saying, okay, wait, that these Persian women are torment to the eyes. Of course, I am thinking here in Medusa and what is happening with the eyes of those women and the guys that receive the gazes of those women that seems to be like dangerous or painful or whatever. So, yeah, and we have all the eyes here. The first one is that's the eye of Philip. The second, he loses his eye when he saw in the chink to the chink in the door in order to spy his wife Olympias, who has been slept with a snake that may be a god. But also we know about this in the ancestor of the Macedonians, Gyges, who see what shall not be seen. He saw the wife of Candaules naked. So there is like a lot of things concerning men seeing women and the danger on this. So I guess love is in the air, actually. And love is probably in the air in the Macedonian context. So I go like a little further. I know how I'm going with the time, but I'm trying to finish, okay? So I try to go further and to seek for more evidences of a relationship between Alexander, in concrete Alexander, with Aphrodite. And the first I find, okay, this is what Elizabeth Cami talks about Eros and all these episodes, but I'm not interested in this topic now. So we find another episode when Alexander has something to do with Aphrodite. And this is the episode of Apelles, the painter, and the model Pancaste, who is also like a kind of mistress of Alexander. So Alexander asked Apelles to do a paint of Alexander's mistress Pancaste like a goddess. We don't know which goddess Apelles will paint. Yes, we know in the end the name is Venus Anadyomene. So again, Alexander has paid for a painting of Venus, of Aphrodite. We can guess, I guess it now because Daniel Ogden told me about it, where this painting was painted, in which building. And of course, it seems to be or in Alexander's rooms or in the palace or even in a temple. But again, we can see the link between Alexander and Aphrodite. This Venus Anadyomene is also a new model of depicting Aphrodite as going out of the sea. And of course, this is a great influence in the future. We saw this episode painted by later authors, but of course, it is reading Pliny, and that Botticelli decided to draw the very beautiful, famous painting of the birth of Aphrodite. So we have the mistress of Alexander, who is I don't know if the text says, but he's one of the most beautiful girls in the world in this time, and she is the mistress of Alexander, and she is also like incarnating Aphrodite. So we have a lot of links between Alexander and Aphrodite too. And to finish, let me put here this fresco from Pompeii, where we find an episode that it is also included in Lucian's in one of the dialogues by Lucian's. So here we find a kind of copy of what we know from Lucian's of a draw that depicts the marriage of Alexander and Roxane. Alexander is clearly depicted as Ares, so we can guess the partner of Alexander here, Roxane. If Alexander himself is Ares, she shall be Aphrodite. To finish, let me tell you, this is one of the greatest jokes ancient history brings to us, because what we find here is a strange episode. You can see also this guy in the second line in the end. We don't know who he is. He seems to be like masked, or his face is like not clearly showed. And I can bet here we are having a mockery, and what we are facing is an episode of the Iliad, the episode where Festus makes a kind of trap to take his wife Aphrodite and her lover Ares, trapped by him in their prison. So who is the guy we find here in the second line? The study says he is Hephaestion. Of course, Hephaestion is a name that can remember us to Hephaestus. So I don't know what to think. As I said, it is like a kind of mockery, at least from Lucian, who is a joker. So, of course, to finish, let me put this in the beginning. And if we begin with Perdiccas' incurable malady by love, we can finish with Antiochus, Antiochus I, the son of Seleucus, who is also ill. And the physician Erasistratus linked with Eros, of course. The physician says that the problem is not he is ill, he is, of course, in love with his father's wife. And for me, it's quite interesting that also Sappho is mentioned in this source. So this is what I have, and I want to hear what you think. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Borja. Very interesting. So anybody want to start us off with some questions? You can either type them if you want or ask them. I'll start us off, I guess, Borja. I was wondering, and obviously this is completely out of my area, so this may have already been answered before, but is there something in whether they're the most beautiful girl in the world because they're the queen, or they're the queen because they're the most beautiful girl in the world? In terms of
actually, Plutarch says on Darius that he is the most beautiful, the most handsome guy in the world. He is the most handsome guy in the world because he is the king, or he shall be the most beautiful guy because he is a king. It is truly interesting, this relationship between kingship and beauty. Of course, this is not real. They are probably, I don't know if ugly, but regular, normal people, okay? But this idea that beauty is connected with the divinity is clear in the case of Helen. I guess it is also interesting that the most handsome guy, the king, shall go with it is like Greece, like any movie of love affairs. The beautiful guy shall go with the beautiful girl in order to do like a perfect couple. But for me, this is another issue of the need to legitimate the power by the Argeads, with the showing their relationship with the divinity. There's like a kind of obsession.
Yeah, it's interesting that the ruling powers leads to beauty, whereas if you look at, as you mentioned, Helen and Paris, she's the queen of Sparta, but Paris is just a normal shepherd who's the most beautiful guy in the world, right? As opposed to Darius or Alexander being the most powerful kings who are also the most beautiful. And you get Philip, who I don't remember ever being called the most beautiful person in the world, probably the opposite, in fact, from his scar. So is it something to do with the sort of the later Roman concepts of power equal beauty, as opposed to a Greek one, perhaps? Or is that reading too much into it, do you think?
No, I think we are here. We are losing, as I told in the beginning, we are losing the point of the Macedonian religious context. As far as we can just know the Greek way of being Aphrodite, we cannot see the Macedonian way of how Aphrodite is worshipped. What I at least like the less conclusion I can show here, although many of the things I told you are able to be put in question, is that we can trace a strong relationship between the Argeads and Aphrodite. Archaeology shall help us to find more issues because we can find temples, and Jane Rames told me about quite a lot of figurines of female goddess that can be Aphrodite, but we don't know. And also, if you see the statue I put on Aphrodite was not quite like the sexy way Aphrodite showed, but quite a different Aphrodite, the Aphrodite Uranea, who is worshipped in the low side of the Olympus. So we have a lot of Aphrodites, and I guess there is this link with Aphrodite and with Eros has the aim to legitimate not just the couple of king and queen, but also the heirs, who are the children from the beautiful guys.
Interesting. Anybody else have a question or comment? Ken mentioned in the chat whether it's Barcine in the fresco as opposed to Roxane.
Yeah, but Burstein is not married with Alexander. So it is quite difficult to, in fact, in our sources, Barcine is all the time the captive, but not like a royal wife.
Good.
And also in the great tradition, even in the medieval, I would like to have Claudia Daniotti here to talk about this. In the medieval and early modern representations of the long tradition on Alexander, the main love of Alexander is not Barcine nor Stratonite but Roxanne. So if you put like a fresco in your house, you will put this like the royal couple, the Alexander and Roxanne.
Any other questions? Anybody has?
I shocked you up like a lot. I know mine is like a very different approach from many of you, actually, because I told Graham, I came from the structuralistas in France. My former tutor was himself an structuralist who studies Greek religion. So I am always trying to go beyond, even beneath the facts and the sources, to see what we don't see. So maybe you don't agree with what I explained to you, but I am open to criticism too. As I told you, a lot of people read the draft that is going stronger, and they told me like a lot of things, and this is how my research can improve. So I welcome any comment.
Good. Any comments, you see, or Carolyn? Yeah.
I had a question, comment. I don't know how to frame it. That was really fascinating, like a super sort of intriguing approach to the topic. You had mentioned Medusa and sort of talked about how Medusa is this representation of, in some versions she is this astonishingly beautiful woman, and so when you're linking that concept of beauty with divinity, how does sort of the other side of Medusa's story kind of fit in, where she is the only mortal Gorgon, right? When she is sort of transformed into the Gorgon, she's the only one who is mortal, whereas her two sisters are immortal, but they're also supposed to be these hideous, monstrous beings with their fangs and everything. So where does that kind of fit into your methodology or your approach or your ideas about this connection between the women and divinity and how that plays out and
Yeah, I have been working like, thank you for your question. This is quite interesting, and this is one of the topics I am trying now to go further, because due to this idea of the torment to the eyes, I can see, or like somebody told me, okay, this remembers me to Medusa, and I say, okay, there are no Medusas in Macedonia, but there are Medusas in funerary context in Macedonia. So I said to myself, okay, I have to go to see this, and I have been reading Jean-Pierre Vernant with his works on the Medusa, and he is like a difficult guy because he explains like it's brilliant, it's amazing, but you don't know where to find what he says, so the clues of his thoughts. So he says that what makes more frightening Medusa is that when you saw her in the eyes, when you saw her in the eyes in the mirror, like in the shield of Perseus, you don't see the monster, you see the beautiful lady. On the other side, I have been working on many strange items between the Medusa and other elements in this story of the royal women, Persian royal women and their tent. First, there is when Alexander came from pursuing Darius, he came to Darius' tent with a lot of fire, with the bath, the hot bath to go in, and they are like dining, and they hear loud laments from these women, the captives. So these loud laments bring me to many places. This idea of the outcry of women are like monstrous, and it brings me to the sirens. And the sirens, this is now is very, very random, okay? But the sirens have wings, and the first gorgons have wings too, and there is like a lot of connections to do with this, and with what we do not know on the rituals of women in Macedonia, with the unique backend we know in history, that is Olympia from Epic. And again, we have all these things in the same pot, in the same box. So I don't know. I have to go forward in this topic, because there is a relationship between the monster and the beauty, and I can bet this is also within the maiden, the horror of the death of the maiden when pregnant, in a truly high level of deaths in this way, and and they are also the death in the childbirth are linked at the same level as the soldiers who died in battle, at least in Sparta, maybe also and in Athens too, I guess. So I have like a lot of data, and I'm trying to put these things together. But there are things that make me guess there is a link. There is a common explanation here, but I don't know if I will find it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks to you.
Great. I was wondering, talking about that, about the striking sort of violence of the beauty of the violence of the beauty of the women, or whatever, however you phrased it. I don't remember now. But it makes me think about the difference between concubines and the loves that you mentioned versus queens. You didn't talk about Thais as the concubine and the whole Persepolis stuff in terms of bewitchment of the beauty, as your common theme. Does that play into the whole Medusa concubine and almost slave bewitchment versus the beauty of the one royal wife as opposed to the multiple wives? They can't all be the most beautiful wife, right? You have your one senior queen who is the most beautiful. How does that all play together? That's a terrible question, but you know what I mean, hopefully.
No, it's amazing. Actually, I shall confess, many of these thoughts to me came when I asked, I made a bad question in a panel in a Celtic conference in St. Andrews, a panel which I organized with Tim Howe and Eran Almagor about the long 3rd century. So I was there with Monica D'Agostini, with Branko Van Oppen, with Maria Vietmer, with a lot of brilliant people, and they talk about Aphrodite and the cult of Aphrodite in the Hellenistic courts by the Hellenistic queens. And I raise my head and say, okay, this is quite interesting, this kind of cult by the Hellenistic queens and we know more about this. It is very, very, very strange. And everybody says to me, no, this is not strange. This is so common. Everyone here knows that, and you don't know it. So I begin to read a lot. And after that, I say to myself, okay, this cannot be a new feature of the Hellenistic world. This shall come from a place, and the place is always the same, is Macedon, are the Argeads. So what we find in the Hellenistic course is what we can see of a very previous way of relationship between the kings and the queens and Aphrodite. But until now, this is what I know.
So is it possible that the queen was the official priestess of Aphrodite in Macedon, and that's why we get that connection of the most important queen being the most beautiful woman in the world as such? Or is that...
Yeah, it can be, but we don't know. And we can go even further in this idea. What we know about Olympias from Epirus, the first problem is that I find scholars that say that we cannot talk about a queen in Argead Macedon because there are not such a title of queen. Of course, this is a trap because there are not kings in Macedon and they don't talk to themselves kings, but we talk about themselves as kings, so we talk about the women as queens too. And the Greeks talk about the kings of Macedon as kings, although they themselves say Philip, the son of Amyntas, and the Macedonians. Okay, this is the royal feature how they talk about themselves. And Alexander, the son of Philip, and the Macedonians, when Alexander dedicates the Panoplias to Athens. Okay, So we can talk about kings, even for a guy like Demetrius Poliorcetes, who has no realm. We have kings without realm, so we can have also, at least now in our studies, we can have queens. This is my point. When Cleopatra, the niece of Attalus, dies, and I don't know if she dies or if she was killed by Olympias, but after she dies, what we know is that Olympias born her in an oven. Okay, this is like Hansel and Gretel's tale, the witch. But actually, one of the expected behaviors when someone dies in your family is that the old woman take care of the corpse of the body of the dead. So we can guess that Olympias, who is the major, the high level woman in the Argead family, to take care of Cleopatra's corpse. And the way the Macedonian kings are buried are in a vessel, in a metal vessel, and they are borne out. So what we have is not the witch, but the care of the dead, as they have to be. So my point here is that Olympias, we don't know about her and Aphrodite, and this can be a great clue about what you say, Graham, but we don't know about her. But we know about Dionysus. We know more about Dionysus of Macedonia, and maybe Dionysus is taking the place of Hades in the Macedonian kind of religious practices. And we find Dionysus and Persephone and the Gorgon in many representations in Macedonian archaeology. So, and even Aphrodite in this link with Demeter, and from Demeter with Persephone. But I have no data to go. What I would like to stress this point, that the queen is like a kind of high priestess of some female figures. But I don't know. I have no clues. I would love to. This is my point. This is my idea. This is what I want to show you. But I don't really know.
Yeah, interesting. Well, unless there's any more questions, thanks, Borja, for a very interesting talk, and thank you all for being here for our inaugural meeting. I'll be in touch about our next one, but we plan on it. What is the 4th of December? 4th of December, right? I think is the first Wednesday in December. So we'll aim for that too. But I'll be in touch in the meantime via the email list and others. So hopefully we'll see you all again next time.
Thank you. Thank you, Graham, for organizing it.
Thank you, everyone.